morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yeah, today we like our plan is to have discussions, but we didn't finish the lecture on Monday, so we'll continue to finish the lecture on chapter 6, and we'll see if we have more time to have discussions. So on Monday we will hear. So there are multiple strategies to support autonomy, and also on the right there are different ways to control people. So you can look at this table and see how you can compare this with what you have done to others and what others have done to you. See, if you give the support, autonomous support to others, or the other people give you the autonomy support. And next topic is the benefits of autonomy supports. So others give this person autonomy support so that this person's need for autonomy is satisfied. So what are the positive outcomes here? There are a lot of them. So in terms of motivation, there is satisfaction of autonomy, competence, and relatedness. That's the most basic. And also, people engage in activities for intrinsic motivation. And also, there's perceived control and mastery motivation. Curiosity is satisfied. And values are internalized to the person. Also engagement. So engagement is expression of motivation. So what expressions does autonomy support have? Engagement, high engagement, more positive emotion, less negative emotion, higher class attendance. That's for students. More persistence. I think that's for both students and employees and other people. And better school retention rather than the dropping out. Also, there is more development if they perceive or receive the autonomy support. There is more self-worth, higher creativity, more preference for optimal challenge. So what is the optimal challenge? I'll talk about that soon. And for learning, there is more conceptual understanding. So I remember that one question in the discussion forum is about conceptual learning, right? Conceptual learning. So autonomy support promotes conceptual understanding of materials. Also deeper processing, more active information processing, more self-regulation, better self-regulation strategies. In terms of performance, higher grades, better task performance, higher standardized test scores. In terms of well-being, psychological well-being, higher well-being, higher vitality. Vitality is the subjective experience of energy that you have. So the vitality is different from the physical energy, actual energy that you have. Vitality is more like a subjective experience. When you have a feeling of autonomy or your need for autonomy is satisfied, you are more likely to be really vitalized. Means that you feel like you have a lot of energy to do things. You never feel tired. And more school or life satisfaction. So the benefits are overall, like not only benefits in one aspect, but if somebody's need for autonomy is satisfied, every aspect of life can be better. So in terms of performance, how well the person does a task and how high the well-being is in terms of well-being, higher. In terms of performance, better. In terms of learning, better. In terms of long-term development, there is more development, higher creativity. And also in terms of the current state engagement, higher engagement. And also all the benefits for motivation. And also, I remember I read from a certain article that autonomy is the most important need out of the 3 psychological needs. So they found that without the satisfaction for autonomy, there is no satisfaction for the other needs. Means that if their autonomy is low, they cannot feel competence or relatedness. So the satisfaction for autonomy is a necessary condition for satisfaction for competence and relatedness. So autonomy, I think is like that's a core for the organism to grow. So what does that mean exactly? So why, if there's no autonomy, there is no competence? If I force you to do something and you do that very well, do you feel successful? Think about this question. So if you do something that others ask you to do, and you do that because of fear, because of something else, negative emotions, you're forced to do that and you do that very well. Do you feel you were successful? Think about this question, just feel it. And that's all the benefits from autonomy support. And there's a empirical finding about the autonomy support. So in that study, there are 2 conditions. So in one condition, the rules were communicated in a controlling way. And in second condition, the classroom rules are communicated in an autonomy supportive way. So there are 2 ways of communicating the rules. And here are the results, the mean performance for each outcome measure. So there are 5 of them. Enjoyment. Look at this one, 5.5 and 4.8. For free choice behavior, pretty like it is apparently more than this one. Creativity, this one is higher. Technical goodness, this one is higher. Quality, this one is also higher. So in this condition, if the teacher gives the autonomy, communicate the rules in a autonomy support way, so the students' need for autonomy is going to be satisfied. In this condition, every outcome measure is higher than the control condition or the others condition. So that's a study introduced by the textbook. You can see how beneficial the autonomy support is. And that's the need for autonomy. And next we go to the second need, psychological need, which is competence. So it is a need to be effective in interactions with the environment. So in other words, every person wants to feel doing something successfully, or they want to succeed. That's one of the 3 psychological needs. So sometimes we want to succeed because there are rewards awaiting for us if we succeed. So for example, if I do this job well, I can get higher salary. They can get promoted. So all this material and intangible rewards are waiting for me if I do this well. So I want to succeed. But sometimes there are cases that I just want to do it well. I just want to succeed. I really want to do it well. Not because of this external rewards. Sometimes there's no external rewards, but I just want to do it well. I want to successfully interact with the environment. So this need is about effectiveness in the interaction with the environment. Autonomy is about how autonomous the person is, but this one is about how effectively the person interacts with the environment. That's competence. So how to involve competence? What kind of situations we can satisfy our need for competence, and what kind of situations help us to satisfy need for competence? So there are some conditions: optimal challenge and flow. I'll talk about this soon. And second one is structure. And third one is feedback. And last one is failure tolerance. So first one, optimal challenge and flow. So the flow theory is a really famous theory in the motivation field. The founder of flow theory is Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. So I'm from Claremont Graduate University. I'm a graduate student there. And this guy, Csikszentmihalyi, is a professor there. I took a course from him last year. Yeah, I took 2 courses taught by him. So Csikszentmihalyi in 1960s and 1970s developed this theory. They found a particular state, which is a flow state. In that state, people have some special experiences. They feel that the time passes so fast, they do not pay attention to themselves, they do not have a self-awareness. The person concentrates on the task only. So all the attention span is spent to do the activity well, instead of focusing on the time, focusing on themselves. And also they have a feeling that they can master this. They have a high confidence, and also they have a feeling that there are abundant feedbacks from the activity itself. So the feedbacks are a lot, and also the feedbacks are immediate. So they can get feedbacks from the activity itself. And also that they feel that they do not put effort in doing that activity. They feel like they do this without much effort. There's a feeling of I do this really easily, but this person achieves a lot in this flow state. So that's the flow state. I don't know if you have ever experienced that state before. I think you did sometimes. Yes. So you think that time passes so fast. You didn't pay attention to the time, and when you leave the flow state, you realize the time is already like 6 p.m. It's so fast. And during that stage, you do not really pay attention to yourself. You do not care how others look at you, or you do not care you do things embarrassing or not. So, but you fully concentrate on the activity itself, and you are so absorbed in the activity. Yeah.
Is there such thing as like negative flow, like when time seems to go really slow, like the opposite?
That's not a flow state. There's no negative flow.
Okay, just wanted to.
So if it is negative, it's not a flow.
Okay.
If you think the time goes so slow, that's not a flow state.
Okay.
So you are in the opposite state. But there is a like fake type of flow. It's called junk flow. They developed this concept called junk flow. Junk means junk, like garbage. So sometimes you watch television, you watch some TV episode, you watch a movie, you are so concentrated on the watching the TV or watching the TV episode, but it's not a real flow state. It's called a junk flow. It looks like flow state because you are so absorbed into that movie or TV episode. But it's not a real flow state because flow state requires challenge. What is that? So they found that sometimes people can go to flow, but sometimes people cannot. There is antecedent in the environment. So we can look at this picture. This axis is a skill level. So how the level of the skills that you have. So how strong your ability to do something. And on the y-axis is the challenge level. So how challenging or how difficult the task is. So for example, I solve the math question. Some people have a really strong ability in doing math, right? Some people have not that strong ability doing math. And if they meet a math question, the question can be really difficult to solve. The question can be really easy to solve. So there is a challenge level of the task, and there is a skill level for that person to do that task. And they found that if the skill level is really high, but the challenge level is really low, it means that I'm really good at this, but the task I have is so simple, so easy for me to do. This time, people will feel bored. They are bored at this task. And so in this situation, they cannot go into flow. And there is the opposite situation. The task is too challenging, it's too difficult. And the person has really low level of skill. So it seems like I'm not really good at this, but the task I have is too difficult for me. So this time I feel anxious. Yeah, anxiety comes to my mind because I cannot do this. I have no clue how to do it. I'm so anxious. So in this case, people cannot go into flow. And there is one situation that the challenge level is a little bit above the skill level. It means that this task seems really kind of difficult for me, but it's not that difficult. I will think that if I do this carefully, I can do this well. But it's not that easy to do. But it's not that difficult to do either. So it's a little bit beyond my ability to do that well. So that's called the optimal challenge level. So there must be a challenge, optimal challenge level, slightly beyond the skill level, so that people can are easily to go to a flow state. So here is a section that people can go to flow state. So if the skill is really high, the challenge is really low, here is boredom. If the skill level is really low, but the challenge is really high, there is anxiety. If the challenge like slightly above the skill level, so if the skill level here, challenge level here, they can go to flow state. So to let people to experience the flow, like have an experience that I do this effortlessly and time passes so fast. I concentrate on this activity so much. There must be a optimal level. Otherwise, I feel either anxious or bored. So that's the flow state. So in the flow state, they found that the need for competence is satisfied. So it's like a stream. Like the state is called flow. It's like flow, and you go to that flow, and your need for competence is being satisfied, moment to moment. So that's the flow state. So I think in other states, not out of the flow state, your need for satisfaction can be satisfied. But in flow state, it's really intense. Your need for satisfied, your need for competence is satisfied. I do not know the word. Like, for example, if it's not a flow state, you do something and you spend like 1 hour to do that, your need for your need for competence is not really that satisfied. You need 2 hours to satisfy your need. But in flow state, you might spend like 10 minutes, and your need for competence is really satisfied. So the flow state is really intense. It's like it's like your cell phone's battery is dead. You want to charge your cell phone, and the charging speed is different, right? In flow state, the charging speed is really fast, and in other states, the charging speed is low. So so there are some implications for the flow theory. Implies that if there is optimal challenge level, anyone can enjoy any activity that's possible. Because it doesn't say what kind of activity you must involve. It just says there must be an optimal challenge level to go to flow state. So you have the potential to enjoy any kind of activity only if the challenge level is a little bit above your skill level. So everybody has a different skill level for different skills, right? I might good at mathematics, but I'm not good at playing music. Performance, like musical performance. So if I do math, I must do really difficult math questions. If I do music, I need to do some really easy test for me to go into the flow state. So that's a flow theory. And the second component that help the person to satisfy their need for competence is structure. So the words they use here doesn't mean the physical structure, doesn't mean parking structure, okay? It means that in the environment, there are clear goals for the person to achieve, and there are clear feedbacks from the environment for the person to know about. And also, if the person meets some difficulty, this person can get helpful guidance and mentoring. That's a structure from the environment. So people need that structure. People need clear goals, need clear feedbacks from the environment, need help if they have difficulties in doing something. So it's like a holding environment. There is something to hold, to climb in the environment. right? If you climb the mountain, you need to have something to hold, right? So that's like a structure. You need to have some structure to hold so you can climb. Otherwise, they do not know what to do with a clear goal. They do not know how well they perform without clear feedbacks. They don't solve the problems if they meet difficulties without the guidance. So they need a structure from the environment to successfully do something. So from the last class, we know that autonomy is very important. People need autonomy every time, every moment. But doesn't mean that there is nothing to help them in the environment. They need help from the environment. They need a structure, but at the same time, they need autonomy. So that's tricky. So how do you differentiate between the structure and the autonomy support? That's important. So if I'm a manager, how do I let my followers work better, have a more motivation to work? I gave them autonomy support. Doesn't mean that I gave them nothing. I need to give them clear goals, clear feedbacks from me, and if they meet difficulties, I need to give them the guidance or mentoring. I need to mentor them, but I cannot destroy their autonomy. I need to support them autonomously rather than control them. So people need structure while they need autonomy. So next, so also structure helps people to go to flow. So where the flow come from? We just talk about this one, challenge and skill balance. There must be a optimal challenge level, which means that the challenge level must be a little bit beyond the skill level. So it must be a balance. But there are two other antecedents for flow stage. One is clear goals. I know what I want to do. If there is no clear goal, I do not know what to do, it's not really possible to go to flow state. And also, the activity or the environment provide the feedback that is not ambiguous. Really clear feedbacks provided to the person, and the person is more likely to go to the flow state. So I have an example here. Because I'm not a programmer, but I need a program for statistical analysis. So I use R. It's a programming software, especially for statistical analysis. So for this kind of software, you need a code, right? Write a code into the software, and they can get results, right? So R is kind of software that you write one sentence, and then they decode this sentence and do the thing. So it's like that. You don't have to compile. So compile language is another kind of language. So I write something down and I click written, and it quickly shows me it successfully follows a command, or there is a grammar mistake in that sentence, or reporting the error. So it quickly tells you there's an error or it's good. And I'm not really good at programming, so I try to make it really well, these sentences. So I type one sentence and click return, and just quickly tell me there is error or is successful. And there is error, I need to think about that and then rewrite the sentence and click return again, and still report error. And I need to continue revising it until it doesn't report error. So this process is really quick. So when I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I was in the flow state, I think. So I think it was so fascinating. This software gives you the feedback so quickly that you know how well you do. So I'm really concentrating on programming. And I have a clear goal, write these sentences and make it work. And I have tons of feedbacks from the software. So I can know that how well I do. And this process doesn't stop, right? Doesn't make me to stop because it just give the feedback so quickly. I'm so involved in this activity. And it's not that easy for me, but it's not that difficult. Because for some other students, they know nothing about coding. So when they do programming, they just like feel anxious. They cannot do it. But for me, I kind of have some kind of a basic knowledge about programming, but I'm not really good at it. That's a right challenge level for me. And also, the other example is some kind of video games. People are so involved, so absorbed in those video games. Why is that? Because those video games design in a way that make you, give you the clear feedbacks and give you clear goals. So if you are the a new person, you are level 1, and they give you the level 1 tasks, and that you really involved in that video game, doing that task. And if you are the old person, that you are a level 100, they give you really difficult tasks. So they always give you the tasks that are kind of difficult, but not that difficult. So you're so involved in that video game. And also you know really well how you perform because the video game itself gave you tons of feedback quickly. So these three are the antecedents of flow state. They found that flow state can enhance people's creativity and also enhance people's motivation, interests, and also motivation and performance. So if people often go to a flow to do something, they have a better performance at that skill, on that activity. Well, that one explanation for this is that if they go to flow states, they have a positive experience of it. So they oftentimes want to go to that same flow state again and again and again because they practice more on this skill, so they are good at it, right? If you practice more doing something, you'll be good at it eventually. That's the benefit of flow state. The third condition is the positive feedback. We just talked about there need to be clear feedbacks quickly, and yeah, people need positive feedbacks to feel the need for to feel the satisfaction of competence. So where are these positive feedbacks from? They can from the task itself. They can from the comparisons of one's current performance with one's own past performance. So for example, I want to play basketball, so I shoot every day, and I shoot like 100 times yesterday, and I shoot 100 times today. So I will see like how how many times I succeeded and how many times I succeeded yesterday, I can compare to the two performance. So I can see how well, where's the improvement of my performance. Yeah, so that's comparison of one current performance with past performance. Also comes from, feedback comes from the comparisons of one's current performance with others' performance. So that involves social comparison. So I compare myself with others to see how well I perform. So I do not exactly know how well I perform, so I compare myself's performance with others. So I can see where's the gap. I can get feedback of that. Also come from the evaluation of others. So I'm a worker in the company, so my manager will give me feedback every month. So I know how well I perform. So the tasks of comparisons between self and other, and between today's self and past self, and also evaluations from others. These are sources of positive feedbacks. So these are positive feedbacks. Positive feedbacks can help people to satisfy their need for competence, but negative feedbacks, the feedbacks about failure, so you fail to do something. Negative feedbacks can undermine the need for, can decrease the satisfaction of competence. So your need for competence is not that satisfied when you receive negative feedback, but your need for competence is really satisfied when you receive positive feedbacks. And also, the text will talk about the praise. So praise is also a type of feedback. It can be positive. Yeah, praise is positive feedback. But sometimes they fail to help satisfy competence. Why is that? Because if you are in the flow state, the task itself can give you tons of feedbacks. So you do not have to have praise from other people. If you're really enjoying something, you are in the flow state, you don't have to know how well you perform from others. So others' praise is often really superfluous. It's really shallow feedback. It does not give you much information. So if you really enjoying something, you do not need praise. You do not have to compare your performance with others' performance, because the task itself is enough. So that's positive feedback. The last one is failure tolerance. So when people pursue the optimal challenge, means that the task itself is kind of difficult, but it's not that difficult. They oftentimes experience failure, because that's not that easy, right? If the task is super easy, you succeed every time. But if the task is so difficult, you fail every time. But it is in optimal challenge, you fail this half of time and you succeed half of time. So oftentimes you feel failure. You'll fail in that activity. So in this case, failure tolerance is really important. If there is a social context in which the failure is okay, it's okay to fail. There's like, it's totally fine to fail some activity. If the person is in that social context, their need for competence is going to be satisfied. But if the social context does not tolerate failure, means that you cannot fail. You must succeed. So in this case, people will have a lot of pressure to succeed. So this time they do not have a satisfaction for autonomy either. And also they do not have the satisfaction for the competence. Because they cannot really concentrate on the activity itself. They cannot go to the flow state. But rather they need to deal with the negative emotions produced by the pressures from the social context. Because the social context, others or environment do not tolerate they can fail. They need to deal with this always. And sometimes we can learn from failure. So failure also provides feedbacks. Sometimes, if you have really positive attitude, if your cognitive styles are really nice, are really good, you can even perceive failure as positive feedbacks. So there is a saying called learn to fail, fail to learn. I don't know if you have heard of that before, but when I took the online positive psychology course, that instructor believed in that saying or slogan, learn to fail, fail to learn. So failure is an opportunity for success. Think about it. Every time you fail, the failure provides a lot of feedbacks, a lot of information to tell how you perform better, how you succeed. There is the example from the history of United States. So everyone knows Thomas Edison, right? Thomas Edison. So he's a guy who invented the bulbs, electrical bulbs. Actually, before him, electric bulb was invented, but his contribution is to find a kind of a material that is really durable and cheap. So he did a lot of tons of times of experiments to find the right material, and this material is really durable, and you can use it for many times. And also this material is really cheap. So he failed for more than 5,000 times. So he did more than 5,000 times to try different materials to see whether it works, whether it's durable and cheap. And the journalist once asked him, like, you failed so many times, how do you feel? He responded that, I didn't fail for this many times. I succeeded every time. I succeeded because every time I found that this material didn't work. That's how he perceived the failure. Like how do you think of his attitude or philosophy? He had a.
It was a good positive attitude. Otherwise, if he got discouraged after a couple times, then he wouldn't have found the way of return.
Yeah, but he tried more than 5,000 times. So think about yourself. If you were him, like how many times you can do. So if you fail 10 times, would you continue? If you fail like 100 times, would you continue? He failed like 5,000 times. Why he could tolerate so many times of failure? Because he didn't perceive every failure as failure. He perceived failure as success. So I can successfully demonstrate that this material didn't work. I can try out different materials. So our life is often or always like this. So we are in this world, we do not know much about this world. If we want to achieve something, reach that goal, we need to try out different paths, different ways to do it. I don't know which one is the best one. I don't know which one is the right one. There are maybe like 100 ways, 100 paths. I need to try out each one. Or there are like 5,000 paths there. I need to try each one. So for Thomas Edison, he tried more than 5 paths, more than 5,000 paths. So failure can give you positive feedbacks also, and failure is a stepstone for success. So that sounds like philosophy, right? Sounds like I would say chicken soup for your life, but it's a truth for life. So failure tolerance is really important for the satisfaction of content. So here we talk about 4 conditions: optimal challenge and flow, structure, feedback, and failure tolerance. What time is it? 11:47. So we can do this. We can talk about the rest parts next Monday. And we'll have discussions next Monday and the next Wednesday. Because this chapter is really long actually. So we spent like two weeks. So I'll adjust the syllabus. I'll change the syllabus a little bit. Okay. So what time is it?
11:48.
Yeah, just like 2 minutes now. Hang on. The third type of need, relatedness. It's a need to build close emotional bonds and attachment with other people. It is a desire to be emotionally connected and interpersonally involved in warm relationships. So the relationship that people want to build is not a one that like, I know your name and I know your face, I meet you on the street, I say hello to you and that's it. That's not the kind of a relationship people want to have, but people want to have really connected relationships. They want really a close bond and attachment with other people. So this relationship is really important, and the connection is really deep. So people want to have that kind of relationship because that kind of relationship satisfies the need for relatedness. People have a psychological need to connect with others meaningfully. So that's it. So I'll talk about this need later next week. So next week you don't have to read chapter 7, and you just come to the class and we'll continue this chapter.